This conference will now be recorded.
All good.
Thank you, Kristen. Okay, so I guess at this time we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with
liberty and justice for all. Chuck, would you mind leading us in our invocation?
Sure. Father in heaven, we thank you for the opportunity that we have to be of service to our community, to manage the natural resources which you've provided to us. We pray that you'd give us wisdom as we make decisions, help us to make it for the better of our community and so that the most people will be able to use the natural resources. We pray that you would bless each one of our staff, keep them safe as they go about their duties. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chuck. Okay, so at this time, we'll call to order. We've got a quorum. We have 6 board members here. Mark Newhouse is not present. The meeting is open to the public, and at this time, we'll accept public comment if there is any. I do not see any public on the call. So with that, we can move on to consider and act upon approval of the minutes of the January 21, 2021 board meeting.
Billy Stevens, I approve.
Mark Gibson, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, moving on to item number 5, budget and finance, review and approval of monthly invoices. As you all recall, we did not have a February meeting, so we do have a January and a February liabilities resolution. In addition, you'll see the monthly financials. We also have both months as well. Nothing really too far out of the ordinary here. Well, I guess one thing is the Intera payment, the final payment for the new well management system. This would complete the initial build portion of Intera's contract for our database. As you've probably seen, we have another agenda item here in a little bit to discuss entering into the maintenance phase of this project. But this would just be the final payment for their current contract. They do have, I believe, 4 items that are outstanding that, you know, we went live with this database in December, and we were focused on the critical stuff that would keep us from stubbing our toe with the rollout to the public. But we have a few things, you know, like phone numbers that didn't make it in, and I can't even recall if those are from the Red River database, the North Texas database. There was an issue with the Red River rollovers on some of the old meter changeouts. You know, we have to go in and put in meter changeouts into the database, and the way it's calculating some of those, it's doing funky, which is, you know, ultimately going to. We need that fixed, because we'll use this database to look at what our historical production has been, and also when you can go in to look at an individual well, you will be able to see a graph of your production. And if you have one that is out of whack, and that's what these are, they're significantly, they're indicating like a complete rollover. So it might be showing 100 million gallons of usage on a well that only uses 100 or 1 million a month or something like that. And so it throws off the scale of the graph. And so Alan and I had a meeting with them again Monday, I believe it was. No, it was Tuesday. And so we want to get those items fixed, but following that, we would propose to send them this check. And then February, that was pretty straightforward. There was nothing out of the ordinary on the February resolution. I guess so. In addition to potential motion to approve these resolutions, liabilities, as you might recall, in April of last year, due to COVID and our remote meetings, the board passed a resolution that authorized myself to sign disbursement authorizations as well as checks, and then authorized Debbie to stamp Mark Patterson, our president's signature on the checks. And these are only for the liabilities that have been approved. So the checks that you are seeing on these two resolutions. Just given the circumstances of today, we weren't sure if the board would like to temporarily give us that authority just for these two or just for today's business, or if, and we can wait on the liabilities and minutes, that's not urgent. The other option would be that we could try to get a meeting, or we could try to meet the president and secretary sometime in the next week or two to get this stuff signed. Makes no difference to us. We just wanted to throw it out there.
That sounds fine to me.
Same here.
Is that in the form of a motion, David?
So move.
A second. Harold.
Okay, we have a motion, David Gaddis, second, Harold Latham. Is there any further discussion on this before we take a vote? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, like sign. Okay, motion carries unanimously.
Drew, you got the U.S. Postal Service on there. Is that for a box up at the post office?
Yes, it is.
Okay. That's all. I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, the next one is to receive monthly financial information. If it's okay with the board, I'll just go ahead and move to February because they're all just kind of a snapshot in time. But if anybody would like for me to go back to January, please let me know. I'd be happy to. So looking at the balance sheet for February, you'll see there $295,825.53 in our checking account. We are earning no interest in that, and we had a CD, $100,000 CD that matured in the month of February that Debbie and I are looking to invest this month right away. What we're seeing right now, this CD would likely be a 12-month CD in the $100,000 range. It might be a little bit more, but we have to dig into it. But what we're seeing right now is about a 0.2% interest rate on a 12-month CD. Not much, but better than nothing that we're getting in our checking account. You'll see right now, as of February 28th, at $160,000 invested in CDs. Going on to our profit and loss budget versus actual, you'll see here that this is not including first quarter production. But as far as expenditures go, we're straight lining. We're 16% of the way through the year and 16% of the way through the budget. So tracking well in that regard so far. I'd be glad to try to answer any questions there may be on any of this. This is not an action item.
The equipment went pretty fast there.
Yes, that was for the acoustic water level monitoring device, David, that we purchased in January. And there will be another. We've got to get Paul a new desk, also, but that will be a 50% expenditure. But his desk is toast with that flood. Now, again, I'll explain that for those that weren't on early on. I'm planning to discuss what happened at the offices and in the manager's report. Any further questions or comments before we move on? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item 6, update and possible action regarding the process for the development of desired future conditions. We don't really have any updates there. We're still planning to meet in June. We'll likely try to schedule that meeting within the next 30 days. I guess there is an update actually. So right now we're working with WSP. As you may recall, that was James Beach's old firm. James has started a new firm, Advanced Groundwater Solutions, but we are working with WSP. They are in the process right now of trying to subcontract with Advanced Groundwater Solutions to make sure that we have James on hand to help take this process through the finish line. We're probably 60-70% of the way through billings on that, but James was intimately involved with everything to this point, including all of the technical portions, such as the modeling. And so it was our preference that James stay involved one way or the other. And so we've indicated that to WSP, and they're going back and forth right now on a sub-consultant agreement. But our hope is that the GMA will not have to take any further action on this, and that we can just continue along with the contract that we have with WSP, and James can be subcontracted to that. So, is there any questions on that? David, Harold, Kristen, do y'all have anything y'all wanted to add?
No.
Nope, that covers it.
Okay. Okay, moving on to item number 7. This is discussion and possible action on authorizing the execution of a master technical services agreement with Intera for continued maintenance and development of the district's database. So, as you all know, we're as we just discussed, our database is essentially complete, and now we're moving on to the maintenance phase, and it's primarily the maintenance. We have a whole list of additional things that we've thought about that we would like to get improved, but we want to get all of everything that we can see currently wrapped up with Intera. Now, that's not to say that we're not going to find something else in the next several months that should have been right, and it's not. And we've talked with Intera, and that they have agreed that this is verbal, but bottom line is that if it should have been right to begin with, they'll fix it, not under this maintenance contract. But before we move into this phase, we wanted to make sure that everything that we know of, at least, that is outstanding is complete. But a lot of what this will consist of is maintenance, such as updating the CAD layers. We're using this database now to verify property ownership. We have CAD layers overlaid in the map functionality, where we can click on there and see ownership and all that. It's a big time saver. Updating of the maps. Mostly it will be just minor revisions. And the way that we propose to do this with them is, we have a budget set aside with Red River and North Texas. And so I envision 99% of the improvements being something that will benefit both districts. If for whatever reason there's something that comes up that, this would only really be beneficial to Red River or North Texas, then at that point we would approach the boards and engage interest on it. But we do have this budgeted amount, and so you'll essentially be paying half the rate for any improvements going forward. And myself personally, I'm a strong proponent of keeping this system up to date and keeping up with improvements. I kind of feel like that's why we ended up in this position in the first place, is it just did not, the improvements, we let the old databases get out of date and got to the point, especially on the north. I think our Red River database, we really needed to start over anyway. One, because they're not supporting Flash Player anymore. But on the North Texas database, I think they probably had the ability, like once we finally approached the database administrator about it, they're like, oh yeah, we could do all this, and this. We're already doing this. Well, it was such a big project to get it up to date at that point that it made sense to look and see what else was out there and just ultimately just to start over. I think I've already mentioned this, but the way that we're proposing to do this is to where we have an improvement. Let's say we want to change the background color of the Red River page to red, and we want the North Texas one to be blue. Well, we would email Intera a scope of exactly what we're wanting, and we would request any clarifications from them on the scope, as well as a not to exceed dollar amount. And then based on what we receive back, then we would either authorize it or not and go on down the road that way. So basically just kind of attack this in little, relatively small scope items and kind of trying to work within our budget. We have a multiple page Word document right now that we'll have to sit down internally and just be continually adjusting what is priority, what isn't. And some of that stuff, you know, depending if we look up and that's going to take a significant portion of our budget, we may decide, hey, let's push that to next year. We could get 10 of these things that we could get 10 things done instead of this one for that amount of money or whatever. But that's kind of what we were talking about as far as how to expend this budget. This contract is a 3-year term, goes through December 31 of 2024. Has a 30-day notice to terminate by either party. As you might recall, we do own the code, which was something that was unique to Intera. So at any point, if we decided, you know, hey, what, these guys just aren't keeping up with it, that we would have the ability to take this code and go find somebody else to try to maintain it. As you'll see here on their master rate schedule, Kevin Smith, who, you know, you might remember Wade Oliver, he's local in Texas. He's a hydrogeologist. He was the project manager for the build of this project. Kevin is the team lead, or he's basically the project manager, the manager of their Washington State office. And he's actually doing the programming right now, but he would be the project manager essentially going forward. And you can see here's his rate of $195 an hour. Again, that's divided by 2 with the 2 districts. And then he would have folks in the engineer category ranging from $110 to $140 an hour that they'd try to insert them in where it makes sense on this project in order to kind of keep costs under control. Let's see here. That I did want to also point out that it says that they will not increase rates more than 3% in any given year. And finally, here in the work order form, you know, just given the nature, we're proposing some language such as scope and costs of individual tasks will be determined per communications with Intera and the general manager. So we're not really setting because this is 3 years. Next year, the board may decide the budget more or less. And so we wanted to kind of maintain some flexibility and not put in a specified budget number. I think that's all that I really wanted.
Do you have a estimated budget for this year, or a not to exceed number, or anything like that?
We have 15,000 in Red River and North Texas, but some of that's already been spent with this most recent payment, or it hasn't been spent yet, but we've gotten approval to spend it today in the liabilities for that final payment. So right now we're looking at about probably $20,000 to get us through the end of the year, and that's what we're looking at right now. And if
does the staff have to approve each scope that's done during the year?
Yes, sir. That's what we're proposing to do. Is once we get these other 4, we'll look at our list and maybe email them 5 or 10 scope items and try our best to make sure it's clearly articulated to them what we're wanting in there. Then we'd request back a not to exceed amount, and based upon that response, we would say, okay, we want 1, 2, and 3 to be done, and forget about the others or whatever it may be, just depending on what kind of costs we get back. But we're going to try our best to work within that budgeted amount and get the most bang for our buck.
So our not
I
to
do
exceed
think
budget,
that,
that's what's in the budget.
correct.
Okay.
And I do think that here in the near future, not this year, but here in the near future, we'll be coming to the board for a special project or two. One being, just flat out adding another module to the database, like a permitting module, something that would enable the well owners to get on when they log on, they could see some type of pie chart or some type of graph that shows them how they're tracking on their permit. In addition, something for the staff to be able to look at, how are they tracking on their permit? Maybe some built-in notifications. Hey, you've reached 60% of your permitted volume. You need to pay attention, or at least a notification to the staff so we can contact. And then maybe some just overall, here's how we're tracking district-wide on permits, things like that. But we're not proposing that this year. We've got some other things that we'd like to focus on first before we jump off into another big project. Not big project, but you know what I mean. Something more than just what I would consider maintenance and minor improvements. Any questions, concerns? If not, we'd entertain a motion.
So move.
Second.
Motion. Okay, motion David Gaddis, second Mark Gibson. Any further discussion before we go to a vote?
What is the motion, please?
Here we go with this maintenance contract.
Sorry.
So we have a motion to approve the execution of this agreement. We got a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, like sign? Okay, motion carries unanimously. We have on here, consider and act upon compliance and enforcement activities for violation of district rules. We do not have anything for that item today. So with that, we'll move into item 9, general manager's report. I did want to say, we were posted to talk fund balance at our February meeting. You all know what happened in February, and so we pushed that off. But as we've been saying all along, I think it would be best for the board to discuss this at an in-person meeting and not over this virtual format. And so we are hopeful that we will be back in our offices for the April meeting. And so at that point, we would propose taking taking up the fund balance again at that point. I just wanted to show you guys real quick our offices. We have had some pictures. It was actually a little bit higher than this. This was taken after we'd done quite a bit of sweeping. That's kind of the entrance. That's Velma's desk. There's in there in Paul's office. See the water on the floor, the reflections. Here's my office. There's the guy in there with their vacuuming machine that's ultimately tied to their truck outside. Here's the boardroom. As you can see, this is where the water was coming from in the ceiling back here. There's right behind the board table. And then there's this. We were getting our second dose of the snow at the same time that all this was going on. So those are the pictures that I have. But the office is dried out, dehumidified, met all their moisture tests. The painting was completed last week. We had a painting company that came in and painted every single wall in the office that did not have some type of paneling. We picked out carpet, and the carpet company is expecting to have the delivery of the material by the end of next week. that could vary a little bit, just given the demand across the state anyway. But that's what we're hearing and hoping for. They're anticipating that once they have the material, it will be about a week-long job, a little slower than what I'm used to. But there's quite a bit of furniture to move in and out for each of these rooms. They're going to attack it kind of room by room, move everything out, move everything back in. So that's the reason why they're thinking it'll take about a week. In addition to that carpet, they'll put in trim, and then we should be ready to go. They've already replaced the ceiling tiles. So we are optimistic that we'll be back in our offices. I will say that we have been working efficiently remotely. Field activities have still been ongoing. I would have been pretty concerned had this, not to say I'm not concerned, but there would have been a little more panic involved had this happened, say 12, 13 months ago before COVID, just given that, we were already set up to work remotely, given if there was a COVID case or something like that came up in our office. And, with the governor's executive order allowing us to meet remotely, that helped. Otherwise, we would have had to have found a venue this week to have a board meeting. So, but I think everybody has gotten the hang of this. We are ready to get back in the office. I don't think this is a good long-term solution, but for right now, business is carrying on, and I think everybody's doing pretty good, best I can tell.
Is this covered by insurance?
It is. The build. So we rent the building, and so that's through county insurance that we pay in our rent. So we haven't. The guy, the head of county maintenance, is telling me that there's a $10,000 deductible, but I think there was 3 or 4 buildings that are all covered under that same policy that had a very, very similar situation to us. And so he believes they're going to be able to split that deductible amongst all the entities. Basically, however much damage you have, that's the percentage of the deductible you get. We've heard from somebody else in the county that there is no deductible due to a rate increase a year or two ago. And so, but bottom line is yes, it is covered for insurance. Our contents insurance is separate. We have that through TWCA. We have a $5,000 deductible there. And because we caught the leak fairly early, I don't think we're going to meet that $5,000 deductible. But we have met with both adjusters. We have not heard anything back from either adjuster, but we've met with both of them. But I just don't think that our contents is going to reach that $5,000 level. We had very little furniture damage. Paul's desk was one of the casualties, but that wasn't necessarily the flood that caused it. It was trying to get his desk propped up to get it out of the water. And it was already it was a cheap desk to begin with, but it had a pretty severe break in a place or two trying to get it elevated.
Well, did we lose power out there for several days?
I don't know about for several days, but we lost it over the course of several days. I mean, we were part of the rolling blackouts, if you will, but they weren't really rolling. Sustained blackouts out there.
Was that pipe in the ceiling insulated, or did we do add insulation, or what did we do different from what was there?
I can't answer the question whether it was insulated because we didn't go back. We didn't try to find it. It's ran in the ceiling for probably a 40-foot run, and what we did. So if you can remember, in the boardroom, there's kind of a closet on the south side of inside the boardroom. There's a long closet there, and that's where the pipe, where you can actually see the pipe. From there, it goes up into the ceiling over the boardroom, in between a sheetrock layer and the roof, and it goes over to the very corner of the northwest corner of the building, which is Alan's office. Comes down you can see the pipe insulated in Alan's office, and then it goes to an exterior faucet out there. What we had them do was they ran a PEX pipe, a HDPE type pipe, and they ran it underneath that layer of sheetrock. So it's not, it's kind of more, I guess, exposed to the central heating and air in the office. In addition, we had them add a valve so that the next time, hopefully there never is a next time, but when something like this happens, we could shut that valve off. And in the event that that line freezes again, that at least wouldn't cause that kind of damage.
Now,
So,
you never know when you're gonna, hopefully it'll be a long time, but you never know when you're gonna lose power, and so that you don't have your central heating. So, if there's some way to do a good job of insulating, that's the best thing to do.
agree. We did also have a leak behind behind one of the sinks in there, and that's been fixed. And we were having trouble. I went up there on Sunday, and the blackouts were started, and some of we had space heaters at all these locations, but some of them were those type that have the thermostat on them. And when the power blinks, they don't come back on. They're not that analog type switch, and so. And then some of our thermostats, didn't have batteries in them. So when the power blinks, it comes back and doesn't go back to whatever the setting was. We got all that taken care of, but we just lost power for just too long. We had faucets dripping. It just got away from us. As far as water level monitoring goes, the guys are doing that right now. They were actually going to try to do that the week of the freeze. February is when we try to get those done. But obviously we didn't go out that week, and we were hesitant to try to schedule appointments with these public water suppliers, especially anybody really. I mean, there was a lot of damage to water wells, whether that be homeowner or public water supply. And we were just kind of trying to let everybody catch their breath before the week following that, there was a lot of folks that just flat out, they would have hung up the phone on us if we'd have called them and asked them to shut down one of their wells for 24 hours. They were just doing everything they could to catch up or keep up, had other wells down. So anyway, that process is ongoing right now. They've been doing it for a couple of weeks, but they've actually been out there doing that this morning. Kristen, we don't have an update on injection disposal well monitoring. Correct?
That's right. No update.
Okay. And then finally, we have the legislative update, and I'll let Kristen handle that.
Right. Well, so the bill filing deadline was last Friday and on the 12th. And so we have a pretty good idea of what to expect. At least as of now. And obviously with the winter storm, originally the priority was COVID legislation and budget because there's budget concerns related to COVID. And then now you've got the, essentially the ERCOT issues and all those power issues that have occurred. So the point is that any water legislation that was thought to make it through, even has a worse chance at this point. So the hearings will start this coming Monday. There's a omnibus bill, which includes probably the biggest legislation, and that's out of Senator Perry's committee, the Senate Ag and Water. And it also includes the vice chair of that committee is Drew Springer, who is y'all's state senator. So there's a hearing set for that on Monday. And Drew and I have worked quite a bit with the stakeholders on that because there was a portion of that bill that adversely affected you guys and really your rules and your spacing rules. And fortunately, at least as of today, I can report that the language that we felt strongly about that was just bad for y'all is no longer, or you're basically exempted out of it. So the point is that I think we're moving forward in a good direction there. We have not seen a copy of the latest draft of it yet, even though there's a hearing on Monday, but we feel good about that. The biggest issue this session, I think, is this attorney fees deal. Right now in Chapter 36, if a groundwater district wins in court, they automatically get their attorney's fees. And that is a unique provision to special districts. And there are opponents of that want that removed and want the language to say may, so that the court in its discretion would award fees however it wants to. So that's the big issue right now. And, we've kind of talked about, Drew and I've talked about that. And we're just kind of staying on top of it. But this fights on that issue's been going on for a while and really involves other parties. So we'll just keep monitoring it. And then in April, at your April board meeting, we'll have an update. And I know we'll have some more discussion about, our thoughts moving forward and all that. Drew, does that cover kind of what you were thinking?
Yeah, and on that attorney's fees bill, Kristen, correct me where I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that a very high-ranking individual or representative in the water world on the House Water Committee does not like that language, so that even if it does get past the Senate, it doesn't sound like the House Committee would be thrilled about it to the extent that the Senate Committee would be. Is that fair to say?
Exactly. Yes. The sentiment is that, we have, the language was originally put in there that you get your attorney's fees. An example is when y'all have done enforcement suits, I know we haven't been able to collect on it. And for example, with Texas rain, but the court automatically awarded you your attorney's fees based on that provision in the law. So the sentiment from on the House side is that why would, essentially why do you give that up? That's what the original language was. And groundwater districts have a regulatory function that's different than all other, even school districts, other special purpose districts. And you're adjudicating things and declaring people's, handling people's groundwater rights. So because of that, it's, that's been the issue. And yeah, so I think Drew and I talked about, we're just going to monitor that. And I know Drew's reached out to both the representative for Grayson County and then Drew Springer's office. And so we're just kind of, he's keeping them up to date. Hey, if you have any questions about us, call us. So y'all are in a good position, I'd say, as of right now, with regard to groundwater legislation.
If Twitter feeds are any indication, they don't seem all that concerned about water right now. It's PUC, ERCOT,
right?
as Kristen mentioned.
Exactly.
That's the hot
anything.
topic.
Yeah, I don't think I'm as worried as maybe some others are about some of the, the contentious, because I personally think anything contentious water-wise this session, it'll be an easy way for them to go, guys, this is not the session for that. So I just think that if it's contentious at all, it's going to have a lot of trouble. We just don't have time. This is really late in the session to start hearings. And so we only have 2 months, and that's not long. Anyway, so long story short, we'll have more of an update, but things look good for GCD so far this session, and we'll see. We'll have, like I said, more in April and May. We'll know a lot more, but all good for now. And I think that's it for me.
Any questions for Kristen or myself? If not, we can move on to open forum discussion of new business for future meeting agendas. As I mentioned earlier, we're optimistic we'll be back by April. If for nothing else, we have the board meeting room available, but I think we'll be back full go to discuss fund balance in April. Is there anything? I guess what's the date for our April meeting? I have it April 15th. Does that time work for everybody? That's the third Thursday. Okay.
I'm good.
It's fine with me.
And
That's fine.
Drew, I've got a question.
okay. Yes.
And you may have covered it before I got on, but did y'all get the payment portal fixed?
I believe so, Debbie.
No, as of right now, neither district is working correctly. And I have been emailing and constantly for the last month and a half. And I'm very, very disappointed with our e-commerce right now. I hope that it gets better.
You're talking about the just credit card payments, correct? Or NACH?
Right. Yeah. Any online payment. It's giving everybody an error message. And we had it working for a little while, and then all of a sudden, then it quit working again. So I don't know.
Okay, well, is my understanding, Debbie, correct, that they don't really even give you a number to call into? It's
Correct. It's all by email, and it's like you get an email back saying, well, we've got extra, ordinary volume right now, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. And yeah, that's about all we get.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess we just need to. We'll try to get that going soon, and if not, we might need to consider trying somebody else. But the credit card payments haven't been something we've offered in the past, but we'd like to get it going,
Yeah.
or not
It would
directly to the
definitely
site.
be
So
an advantage, I think.
yeah. Well, Debbie, we'll talk about that here after the meeting. But thanks for the question, Chuck. We'll try to get it figured out.
Did I go back to the agenda 5B? Ask a couple of questions.
Yes, give me just a sec. Yes.
Okay. The $2,600 there on Texas Rain. Is that something that they owe us that we don't expect to ever get, or what is that?
Yes.
So at some point, will that disappear or be?
It's an annual decision by the board. Well, I think what we've decided is we're going to just talk annually, and at some point, the board may decide to let's quit showing that on the balance sheet and keep it on the books, or whether just to wipe it all out.
Okay, and then down on 23-150, drillers deposit, is that liability?
Yes, because we will have to in theory, we refund all those deposits if they get all their stuff to us in time.
Okay, but we're saying as of right now, we have $14,100 in deposits that we expect to be returned if they get all the information in. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that accumulated over what period of time?
I guess so. Public water system wells are allowed 365 days plus 2 365 days extensions. The other wells are 240 days with the option of 1 240-day extension. So I guess in theory over 3 years.
Okay. Well, I mean, is it your impression that the well drillers don't give it a very high priority to get that information in to get that refund back?
No, I mean, they want it. They want it back. I mean, usually what they do is they just roll it into the registration fee. A lot of them keep a chunk of money on deposit with us, so that every application they send in, they don't have to come in. They'll come and write a $1,000 check, and that way they don't have to come in writing checks for every well they do. And then we just kind of notify them, hey, you're out of money, and they send in more money to keep on deposit. Because for like a 17 gallon a minute well, for instance, they'd give us $200, and $100 of that would go back to them. But most of the time, we don't actually give that money back to them. It just comes back into their account, and then the next well that's applied toward that.
Okay.
But they do, and we've recently tied that, David, to inspections also, because we were having difficulties, getting, we have somebody get 5, 6, 7, 8 wells that are outstanding, and so we've tied that to, hey, you need to contact field staff and get an inspection before, and that's all tied together with that $100 refund.
Okay.
And that has helped. Wayne sent out emails to all the guys that had outstanding wells, and when we adopted the new rules, and basically, hey, you know, 1, you're going to lose your deposit, and 2, it can be a major violation. And lots of people started responding to wanting to get their wells inspected. And it's so much better if it's done early on, because, you know, if it's 3 months after a well's done, it's a lot more difficult to coordinate with the homeowner that's, you know, their well's been operating for 3 months and now all of a sudden you're wanting to come out and disconnect it and flow test it. The idea is to get all that done before all the plumbing and stuff's hooked up. And 99% of the time we can accommodate the day of, especially if they give us a day or two's warning. We can work schedules and get it done.
Do we anticipate at a future meeting that we may go over an example or more detail this database, or is that not under consideration?
Oh, it's if you guys would want to, yeah. I mean, that we'd be happy to. We've shown the board I don't remember, it was probably 6 months ago, showed the board, but we'd be happy to. If you'd like for us to, under item 10, we'd be happy to show you guys next meeting or whenever you wanted to see it. And it's totally up to you guys. You know, I'm anticipating the fund balance discussion to be a pretty long discussion. I would say we'd be really lucky to get it done in 30 minutes. I would venture to guess 30 minutes to an hour and a half discussion. And staff doesn't care. We'd be happy to show you guys next meeting, or if you'd like for us to wait for a meeting similar today where there's not a whole lot of business to discuss and people don't want to stay too long after noon, we could maybe try to shoot for May or June. But again, we don't care. It's just a matter of how much time you guys want to spend at an individual meeting. But we'd be happy to show.
It would be fine with me. I'm in no hurry, and I don't, if the rest of the board doesn't want to do it, that's fine.
And if for whatever reason, David, you were the only one, I'd be happy to set up a session with you individually, or if any of the board wanted to see it individually. Be happy to show you around. Kristen, showing the board through the database on one of these meetings that's being recorded, put out on YouTube and all that, because there's really no way for us to do it without showing somebody's information, whether that be emails, addresses, phone numbers, or production, or something like that. Do you have any? Do you think that should be done in a in-person meeting? That's just that way we're not just airing people's stuff out on YouTube,
Right.
or does it matter?
Well, I'll have to look. I'd say let's err on not, so we can talk about whether we could do, I mean, there are some aspects of it you can do an executive session, or that part of the meeting can actually be blipped out, if that makes sense, where you can take it out if that's something that,
Okay.
that we go to meetings links. But yeah, because of the proprietary nature of some of it, we'd want to be careful posting it, like you said. So we can talk about how, you know, since we do have other items, I know maybe at the next board meeting to do an executive session, if we wanted to do that portion of it, we can fall, you know, that may be able to fall under the attorney-client consultation, because I know there were some, you know, disclaimer things we needed to talk about too. Anyway, we can see if that'll fit.
Okay. I'm going to put on database demonstration executive session, and David and the rest of the board, if it's okay with you guys, if y'all just allow me to coordinate with the president, Mark Patterson, and we'll just kind of figure out, or let him decide on which meeting in particular we want to put it on the agenda. But we'll do it with one of the next, either the next meeting or next 2 or 3 meetings. That work for y'all?
Yeah, that worked.
Okay. Well, we'll get that on one of the upcoming agendas and go from there. Anything else?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Mark Patterson, have a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. All right. Well, we appreciate you guys joining us today. I guess we want to continue the virtual option for April, correct? Like we have been until we see it's not being used. Is that fair?
That sounds fair.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody.
See y'all next time.
Thank y'all. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.